Welcome to Peak, Train Like a Girl, a podcast by girls in sport for girls and coaches in sport. We're here to amplify your voice. It deserves to be heard. At Peak, we're a safe place for girls to hang out, learn, grow, and build community. We empower girls in sport and coaches with knowledge, resources, and support we think is necessary in today's athletic environments to thrive. Make sure you're sharing us with a female athlete or coach you love, because it's literally the easiest way we can grow our platform. And we believe we have so much value to offer. And we're going to show you that by bringing you Addie Dieckmeyer. I'm pretty sure I'm saying her name correctly. Her last name is a little confusing, but I think we're saying it right. And I am so excited. Actually, I had a chance to catch up with Addie before we started the podcast, and we've got a few connections, which was super fun to find out. But she also was the IGLCA Coach of the Year at Barrington High School. I believe they took fourth place in the championship season this year. I actually was at their last two playoff games, and it was really fun to see her on the sideline coaching, and really fun to watch her girls perform at such a high level. She comes from Webster Groves High School in St. Louis, where she played attack before attending North Central College. I want to talk to her a little bit about her experience there. Coached for a brief time at St. Viator High School, which is a private high school in the Chicago area. And she now coaches, the head coach for the girls program at Barrington High School, which is also in Barrington, Illinois. And Addie, we're so excited to be able to have to say you're from Barrington, Illinois, because our podcast is
Hi, sorry, can you hear me?
We can. Can you hear me okay?
Sorry, I had my headphones in and then you fuzzed out a little bit.
Absolutely no problem. It's totally all good. Are you ready to get warmed up with us?
Yes, absolutely. I'm just going to try and put my headphones back in.
You do
and make
you.
sure I can hear you. Okay, now I can hear you. Well, thank
Yay,
you.
and we can hear you super clear too. So I hope you heard all the accolades we gave you during our warm up.
I did. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Lipstick or lip balm?
Lip balm.
All right. Chipotle or McDonald's?
Ooh, can I say both?
You can totally say both. Oh, I love that. Fill us in. Tell us more.
I'm a sucker for a McDonald's Coke.
Okay.
So if it's like a long, hot day, I might, pop by McDonald's. Like McDonald's is more a treat. Like maybe I'll have it like once every 2 months, where I feel like Chipotle is more like, oh, I would get that for dinner.
I love that. And McDonald's Coke, I've heard, is very different. I heard there's some like special thing to their formula.
I've heard that they filter it 3 times through, like the water. So that's why it tastes so good. So I don't know if that's true.
Slightly crisper. I believe it. That's the hype that I've heard. All right. Morning practice or afternoon practice?
I tend to like morning just to get it out of the way, but I'll dread it the night before.
Oh, I love that. All right. Whistle or clipboard? And which one can't you coach without?
Clipboard.
Oh, tell us more.
I guess more of a dry erase board. Like I always like to have my board so I can draw things out. I have to be honest, I'm very bad about having my whistle. Like I tend to steal a whistle from my other coaches.
Hopefully it's sanitized first.
Yeah, exactly. Or I'm like, you guys have to blow your whistle because I don't have one.
I love that. And I never use a whistle at work, which is so funny, but I'm big on the clipboard.
Yes.
All right, Addie, fill us in. What is your story of being a girl in sport?
Okay. So I started playing sports at a really young age. My first sport that I started playing was softball. I played that about from kindergarten, first grade, all the way up until high school. My dad was my coach. I did the rec local softball league in St. Louis, and I just really loved it. And then kind of as I got to high school, and I had done other sports always growing up. I did volleyball and basketball, and softball was kind of like my one true love. And then as I got into high school, I don't know, just sometimes you have coaches you don't love and you're ready to try something new. And I had a friend that played lacrosse, and and I had never heard of lacrosse. Like, this was not a thing in St. Louis, and they were like, come try it out. And it was just me and a group of friends, and I immediately fell in love with it. And I was like, I want to find a travel team, and I want to play in college. And I've just always loved sports. One, just being able to have like a fixed schedule. I think it helps me stay on track. And I'm a very social person. So it's given me that social aspect. And then as I've kind of grown, I've now been coaching for 11 seasons. I think I have learned way more about myself as a coach than I ever have as a player, just because I'm constantly being challenged by different things between running a travel program and coaching a high school team. But between that, like all the different people, ages of kids that I'm working with, has really just given me a new perspective of what it's like to be a woman in sports. As a coach versus a player.
Yeah, I have a next question like set and ready, but I'm pivoting because there was a lot in there, and if you don't mind, I'd like to circle back and have you unpack some of it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So you alluded to softball was your true love, but then you talked about a coach that may or may not have been your vibe and kind of went to lacrosse. Did I hear that correctly? And if that's true, tell us what happened there.
Yes. I'm going to be honest, because you'll probably want to cut this out. There was just like speculations that the coach was maybe shouldn't be working with women.
Yeah. No, that's why we're here. That's the stories that, that's why we're here, because that is.
Love it then.
No, yeah, it's unfortunately, it is all too often the story. And one of the, we've had that situation in coaching programs that I have been with, and unfortunately, what happens is it is speculation because girls don't feel safe having the conversation with another adult. And a couple different things happen. Either girls aren't believed, or they're told they misunderstand, or they're told that, you shouldn't gossip about somebody. But then we're really not creating safe places for girls to have open conversations. We think that's important. That's a big reason we're here. A big reason girls drop out of sport is because they have been harmed emotionally, socially, sometimes unfortunately physically by coaches. And those are the stories we're here to share. So if you don't have to go into graphic detail, but we'd love to hear how you navigated through that and how you found your way through that and to something else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't say that anything personally happened to me. I just think sometimes you're just around somebody that doesn't make you feel comfortable, and maybe there's not necessarily something they say or do. But it can be, especially when you're in high school, it's like you're kind of in a group of other girls and you guys are talking, and, maybe one person says, hey, I kind of felt uncomfortable about this. And that's kind of eye-opening, like, hey, something similar was said, or I saw something that made me feel uncomfortable as well, and I don't want to be a part of that. So I would say that's kind of what happened to me, on top of like, not necessarily loving it anymore, ready to try something new. Especially I think in high school is a really great time to try things and when you have a group of friends and they're all saying, hey, we're going to try something new, let's try it together. I think that's kind of exhilarating. And so that was also kind of what happened as well, is like, hey, a group of us banded together and we're all going to try lacrosse.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that. I do want to, finish this conversation. So what do you think we can be doing as coaches for girls to create environments where girls can have conversations where they feel uncomfortable and they don't know how to articulate that. And again, maybe it's something that was said, or maybe it was a look, maybe it was a touch, or maybe it was just awkward. I mean, who knows what it was? What can we do better as both coaches and administration to help girls feel safe and seen sharing their experience?
I mean, I would say one of the biggest things that I see in like from an administrative perspective is like, so I'll just give an example. Like when I played lacrosse in high school, both of my coaches were male. I think they were both like great people, but I just think as a woman, you feel more comfortable going to a woman. So I have no issue with men coaching women's sports, but I think women have to be involved. Like having an all male staff, isn't something like I would personally want to do as a head coach. Like I would make sure that you have women and somebody there that the girls feel comfortable talking to. I think one thing too, especially like high school and younger level, you kind of have to, I don't want to say reiterate yourself a lot, but you have to make the statement multiple times to make the kids feel comfortable. Like one thing I'm always saying is like, hey, if anything happens, like we need to be transparent with each other. You guys need to talk to me. I need to know what's going on. Otherwise, I can't support you. So I think just having that conversation often and building that trust can really help the players open up to you about what's happening.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd love to get Matt's perspective here. One of the things that we see, and we have a pretty extensive survey that we've sent out to, quite frankly, hundreds and hundreds of female athletes, and they say exactly what you feel the steps are. They feel more comfortable talking to women. They don't believe that women should be coached by an all male staff. They think those things are true. And they also believe that open and honest conversations about the transparency between relationships, coach to player, player to coach, coach to administration, administration to coach is super important. So that's what athletes are saying. And obviously that was your experience in sport. It was also my experience in sport. And if administration would do their due diligence and believe even us, like you and I have both been female athletes and now we are female coaches, and we know when things like, hey, this just isn't feeling right. And sometimes just trusting your gut. And I'm sure Matt can attest to this just from a mental performance perspective, trusting your instincts, and not shutting that down. And I think sometimes we do that too much. We tell well, they didn't really mean it. Are you sure they look that way? But trust what somebody says and not always try to fix it. Just be able to hear them and be able to relate to them and create a trusting environment. So I think that is super true. Matt, what are your perspectives on this conversation specifically about girls feeling comfortable around their coaching staff, and that maybe for a female sport, it's not the best idea to have an all-male staff? Do you have a perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in full agreement there that it should not be like an all-male staff for a girls program, for a girls team. I think that there's value in the perspective of having a male on the team, but I don't think you should have that all male, coaching staff. I agree with the both of you, where I think it really is important to have at least at minimum one woman on your staff, just to make sure that your athletes are feeling the most comfortable as possible. And then I kind of want to expand a little bit on something you said, Samson, where you talked about how sometimes girls don't necessarily feel comfortable kind of bringing it up, and they just kind of think about it. A lot of times, and this isn't just for this topic, but a lot of times when we are just thinking about something that's happened to us or something that has occurred in our life, and we don't externalize that and bring that up to other people, we can get caught in kind of this just this kind of room where all we're hearing is our own voice and our own rationalizations for the things that have happened. And when you're kind of trapped in this sound system where you're just hearing your own rationalizations for things that have occurred, there's way more likelihood to let those things go, to create those rationalizations, to just try and pick and choose the reasons why it wasn't as bad as it seemed or it didn't affect you as much. But when we can externalize that and have that conversation, whether it's with a peer, whether it's with a trusted adult, whether it's with a coach, and we can externalize some of those feelings, that allows us to get that outside perspective and not be kind of trapped in our own sound system where we're just hearing our own thoughts. By creating that externalization where we have that conversation, it gives you opportunity to hear other opinions. And even if you are hearing the same opinion as yourself, you're hearing it from somebody else, from a different perspective. So it can offer that, greater level of just confidence in the things that you were believing beforehand. So I really think it's very, very important to have people who make your athletes feel comfortable on staff. And in this case, I think that having women on staff is incredibly important to make their athletes feel the most comfortable being willing to share those things.
Yeah, I agree. So Addie, tell us what drew you from playing to coaching and what made you want to lead a girls program specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in the sense of getting into coaching, to be honest, it kind of fell into my lap. I had just graduated college, kind of having that early life crisis of, oh my gosh, what am I going to do for a career? I majored in marketing. What does that even mean? And I had somebody that I had played with. She was a year older than me. She had reached out. She was the assistant coach at Illinois Institute of Technology. It's a Division III program in the Chicagoland area. And she asked me she was leaving, if I would be interested in applying for her position. So I decided to take a leap into that. It ended up working out, and the person who had hired me at the time, he was coaching a travel lacrosse program out in Lombard and asked if I would be interested in helping him with that. They were looking for some other coaches. And so I had started doing that. And at that time, I was really interested in event planning. So I had reached out to the woman who was running the travel program, asking just like, if I could help with any events to gain more experience into, to add to my resume. And so it ended up turning into a full-time position, and I've just been doing it ever since. I think I just really love working with young adults and children. And for me, at the end of the day, like everybody loves winning, right? I'm going to be honest, but at the end of the day, that's not what it's about. It's because a lot of these kids, they might not go on to play college sports. A majority do, but a lot of the kids I coach, they end up, just wanting to be really the best player for their high school or whatever it is. And so I just feel like it's what I can teach to them off the field that's super important, like how to be a young, confident woman in society. And really and Matt's been so great at this because to me, the mental health piece is so important. I am not trained in that. I don't have any degrees, but I do find it really important. So that's why it was so amazing to have Matt come and work with the Barrington team this spring season, because I just think all of those things that are intertwined into sports that maybe people don't think of. And to be honest, like in today's sports, I feel like we're losing sight of a little bit. I like to try and keep those in by bringing that to my club and high school team.
Yeah, I agree. So when you're talking about success for your program, so you touched on it a little bit, and I do want you to talk about the winning piece because the winning is important. But is it more about developing players who are going to compete at the next level or shaping the kind of people you want them to become? And how do those two philosophies live together for you?
Yeah, I think one thing that we talked about, so I'll just tell you a little story this season. So we're at Barrington, we're going in, and we're going to go play York High School. And at the time, they're ranked number 1, and I don't know where we were at. Maybe we were like 15th or something. And of course, you go into a big game and everybody always gets nervous that, oh, we're going to get beat. This team's number 1. There's no way we could win. And I went and I told them a personal story of something that happened to me. And we just talked about how failure is not an option. And I don't mean failure as in like losing the game, but failure is like giving up and not believing that you can do something. And after I tell this and finish the story, I would love for you to talk to Matt about like how you felt the experience. Go out there and compete, and we can't believe that we're going to lose. Like, failure is not an option, and we have to go out there and work as hard as we can. And if we lose, so be it, but we can't ever fail. Yeah, and I don't know, Matt, if you want to talk about like, because Matt, you definitely talked, because that was like one of our biggest games. And when we won that, it was like, then we were on this streak of like everybody just being so confident in themselves.
Yeah, I think that was a really pivotal moment in the season, just based on how everybody really truly bought in to what you said. I thought that was the game where, even though we were playing, at that point, the biggest game of our season, it didn't seem like anybody was really focused on the outcome of the game in itself. It was really just so much more focused on how the game was going to be played within the lines. Nothing related to the outcome of the game itself. And I think that really kind of did stem from, that conversation that you had with the team beforehand as we led up into that game. I think it was, again, just that really, really pivotal moment in the season where the scales started to tip for everybody, where they really started to buy into the things that you were saying and the coaching staff was saying, in terms of how, you were totally right. Like, failure wasn't an option. It was either we were going to go win or we were going to go learn from this experience. And so I thought that really was just a great way of kind of alleviating a lot of those nerves for the team, and just this kind of catalyst for the things that were to come in the future down the line there.
Yeah, and I think one thing to kind of go back to like your initial question is like, it wasn't about the winning necessarily. Of course, we wanted to win, but it was also like so much more like the kids, like they played with confidence on the field. The people that weren't in the game were cheering like I've never seen before. Like, we were playing as a full team and everybody came together, and just like the respect and how the kids were treating each other and just like acting as young adults, like that's way more of a win to me than the game itself.
Yeah, I agree. And you can see it, right? Like, and who I think does it really well too is Kelly at Northwestern. You look at the sidelines, and I know she's not doing it. I think she's got another coach that's kind of responsible for that, but her bench, like, literally, like, sets the tone and the texture. Like, they are in that game 100% of the time, which really drives what's going on in the field. And I think a lot of times people think the coach is the one that has their foot on the gas. But I really think that it's the other players. When you get everybody to buy in, and that I really believe starts with the people on the sidelines. And you can feel that. Like, and that's one of the things I did notice when we were watching some of the playoff games with Loyola and New Trier and you guys. Like, you could see that, and you can tell when the energy on the sidelines, the players, starts to dip. You can tell that the play on the field starts to dip. And do you guys get a sense of that as coaches?
Oh, absolutely. Like, to me, at the end of the day, like, I'm here as an adult to like supervise, and I can give you words of motivation, but I think the kids are way more motivated by their peers.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's switch gears here a little bit, and let's talk about training. So I'm just curious, how do you build training around being a female athlete rather than a generic template, which is probably what you grew up with?
Yeah, so I definitely utilize a lot of resources in the area. So, there's this trainer in Barrington that we set up trainings with him. Like, so we have a booster and they're super awesome and they help me, like all of this would not be possible without them and they help set all of this up. But so we use a training program. So in fall and winter, they would go to him 2 times a week. One was focused on strength. One was focused on speed. And so that's like the physical piece of it. And then we do a fall and winter training session as well. So I'll utilize people that I know within the community and I'll set up a training session for them to run like lacrosse skills.
Yeah, which is different, right? Yeah. So
yes,
the skill,
absolutely.
which is different than being in the weight room. Do you have much background, or do you agree that boys and girls need to train differently to optimize both performance and to decrease injury? Do you have any feelings or thoughts on that?
I mean, the female body is obviously different, so I definitely agree that the trainings are different, but for me, like when because I'll talk to the people beforehand being like, what's the focus? And for me, it's always like lacrosse skills.
Yeah.
Like focusing on, the muscles because obviously the muscles you're using in lacrosse are going to be different muscles you're using in wrestling or a different sport. So I like to be lacrosse focused.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's interesting because so this is my background. So this is where I lay my hat. And, there's more than one way to do everything. And, but people who think that there can be one template and that all sports, this idea of equality versus an equity, which are not the same word, things don't need to be equal. My cross country runners do not need to be doing the same workouts. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be some crossover, but they don't need to be doing the same workouts that lacrosse players are doing. And does there need to be a certain base building when young athletes at 14 are coming into programs? Absolutely. But then you're exactly right. The skills within the sport and the specific training, like one of the big focus in our school was we're going to decrease the amount of ACL tears. And they were hammering this home. And I can tell you, I've been coaching cross country and track for decades. Never once have I seen a cross country athlete tear their ACL. Never once. But I can tell you how many have had bone stress injuries. But so for me to fit myself and my athletes into a program where they're focusing on not tearing an ACL, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think there has to be some autonomy within the coaching staff while you so eloquently said, you're not a mental health performance coach like Matt is. So you're going to defer to his expertise. And yet you certainly understand what it takes to be a high performing athlete from a mental performance perspective. And you're not a strength and conditioning coach, but you certainly know what it takes to be able to perform a lacrosse skill. So do you think it's important for coaches to maintain some type of autonomy when they're putting programming together?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is where I'm at. Like if I just feel more comfortable if I'm able to find somebody that I know is like, okay, I love to lift weights. Like I lift all the time, but I'm like, to me, if I can find somebody who's certified in that to teach the girls, I feel way more comfortable doing that. Same with like utilizing Matt and a mental health specialist. Like I can absolutely teach them things that like I have learned myself and doing research, but I have somebody that, is certified. So I'm just like, if I can utilize resources and other people out there to help make my program better, I'll do it, but I would love to utilize people to bring that professionalism to it, if that kind of makes sense.
And you have I'm assuming then you've got the discretion, and the AD, I'm assuming, supports you. Not every school has that, right?
Yeah, yes. Like I said, I mean, I've been so lucky to have, like, we have a booster with a whole fundraising program that really just makes this all possible. And I know a lot of other schools and programs don't necessarily have those opportunities. So, I feel really lucky, just like for myself, my staff and the girls that we're able to do these things. I don't know how many other programs could, hire Matt and utilize him.
Yeah. And your athletic department has to be able to support that you're using outside resources. A lot of athletic departments wouldn't support that piece.
Yes, definitely. Like that's one thing I've really loved about being at Barrington is,
Yeah.
just the staff in general and the administration on the athletic side, they're very supportive and they will do anything to help you and the players succeed.
I love that. That is absolutely amazing. When you're watching your female athletes with growth and puberty and navigating things like menstrual cycles, and when it comes to both planning practices and managing load, and that can be both physical load and or mental load, do you talk about that? Do you talk about puberty and growth and menstrual cycles? Are you having those kind of conversations? And if so, what do those look like?
I'm going to be honest, not particularly, because I would say like a majority of my time is spent with high schoolers, in the sense of like when I'm at Barrington. So they've kind of already been going through that process for a few years, a majority of them. And then within my club team, like I'm maybe only seeing these kids, 2 times a week. So I
Yeah.
would say I'm not necessarily having those conversations with high school. You can see, I don't want to say like the moods, but obviously like when you're in a certain phase, you're not as high energetic. So I can definitely see that with the kids. Obviously a lot of young women tend to have like very bad cramping. So
Yeah.
I think it's just something like, when that happens and they're talking to me, like I really like to have open communication with all my players. So, they'll say like, hey, I'm not feeling well or whatever it may be. Like, it's just like, okay, just do what you can today and take care of your body. Cause for me, it's like rest is number one. I'm not going to make you push and like hurt yourself and be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I agree. So speaking of rest, before we move into that, let's talk a little bit about fueling. So how are you talking to your team about fueling before, during, and after games? Are there conversations with that? Are you bringing in experts in that arena also?
We had a nutritionist come. So we do
Wow.
utilize that as well. I know we're very lucky, but yes, we definitely stress like, going into playoffs and, the state final this season, it was obviously so hot. So, we talk a lot about, nutrition, how you're going to fuel your body, liquids, things that you can eat to, food and water to keep yourself hydrated. We are very big about like, some of the funds that we use from the booster, we go to Costco before the season and we get the liquid, not Liquid IV, but like another brand. There's somebody
Yeah.
actually at Barrington, that's made their own that we utilize. Is that
They're
N2, Matt?
a
Yep,
sponsor of the
and two.
podcast.
Okay, I love it. It's the best. So like we
Yeah.
had that for our team. And then we'd go to Costco and we'd get healthy snacks. And so like I'd essentially just keep a giant snack bag in my car all season. And the kids would come to my car before the games and come get the snacks, cause it's like, especially my freshmen, let's say, Barrington gets out at 3:20. So, and then we're getting right on the bus. And if you're a freshman, you don't have time to go get food. So really big on like making sure that they have snacks and they're fueling their body. When you're sitting at a desk all day and they're staring at iPads and, they've been doing that for 7 hours, obviously you're going to be groggy by the time you get out of school.
Yeah, I agree. And that has changed since you and I grew up. I mean, it's really changed since I grew up, right?
Well, I didn't know what an iPad was, we didn't have those.
Yeah. And they're not getting up as much during the day and all that stuff. It does make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Their days are a little longer.
Yeah. We talk even about things. I'm like, don't go to bed at 2 a.m. and, we have a game the next day and you're going to bed at 2 a.m. because you're watching TikToks all night. Like we definitely have like those type of discussions too. Like it's more than just what you're eating, but like how you're taking care of your brain.
Yeah. So what do you talk about? How do you talk about sleep and its effect on performance?
I mean, to me, sleep is like number one. If you're not getting, especially, what do they say? I think for high schoolers, you should be getting 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night. So really big on like pushing them, like you have to sleep, you have to be taking care of your body. Like sleep is number one. Try to get off your phone, an hour before you're going to bed. Cause all of those things, don't eat crap before you go to bed. All that stuff's going to make a difference, the next day or 3 days later when we have a big game coming up.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that from a physical perspective, fuel is super important. It helps athletes recover, as does sleep, as you were saying. It helps the physical body recover. But Matt, I also have to believe there's some science that talks about mental health or mental performance. I've got to believe both nutrition and sleep play an impact there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a huge factor to, your performance and your mental health. I mean, somebody who is not sleeping, that affects you both physically, obviously, in the way that you're physically performing, but it also impacts you mentally and your mental performance. There is a reason why high schoolers are, supposed to get that 8 to 10 hours of sleep. It's because that amount of sleep helps to protect their brain. It helps them to learn and kind of to take all the information they took from the day and to encode it and to actually remember it and be able to use those things. And so if you're not sleeping enough, your brain is not functioning to its highest potential. Same thing with the fueling, not just the amount of fuel, but the quality of the fuel. If you're not fueling yourself, optimally, again, your brain is not going to work properly. And those are the things that we find that are impacting our performance, right? If our brain is operating too slow, we're not thinking quick enough, we have to think manually instead of being able to think automatically about what's happening in front of us. Those are things that directly impact performance and are directly correlated with sleep and nutrition. So absolutely, that's a huge, huge, huge thing in the realm of mental performance.
Yeah, and the interesting piece is, and it's something, again, just with my background being exercise science, I don't think people even get both the metabolizing of and the absorbing of the workout also happens through the refueling and the sleep process. I think a lot of people think if I want to perform better, I'm going to do more. And actually, that's not what the science says. The science says actually do less, fuel better, sleep more, and you will metabolize that work. You can't express the fitness unless you've given it the opportunity to both break down, recover, and then repair. It is a process. And so the pause that we take to both sleep and eat. And then the next thing I want to talk about is kind of value outside of athletics. Those are important now for everything, not just for, our academic life and our mental health and our mental performance, but also we know now that that's also what impacts performance, not just from a recovery perspective, but you actually get better during those moments. You're not actually I think people think they get better during the workout. I'm like, no, you don't get better. You're breaking things down. You don't get better during the workout. You get worse. You don't get better until after you sleep. So I think that sometimes athletes don't really understand that. And that's something I really like to talk to my athletes about. Addie, talk to us about helping athletes understand who they are outside of lacrosse, and what does enrichment look like for your players on your team?
Yeah, for me, it's really important that the players understand, just that lacrosse doesn't define them, just how, adults talk about like your career doesn't define you. And I think a lot of people at every stages in life maybe feel like what they do defines them. So, talking about I think it plays a little bit in like, what is your role on a team? And it doesn't have to be like about your skills. Like, how can you be a good friend? How can you be a good teammate? How does that transition into them growing up and going to school and getting jobs? And just wanting them to realize that they are good people and they bring a lot to society.
Oh my gosh. I actually went to this amazing conference over the weekend where this mental health professional was talking about helping your athletes understand their role. And it happened to have been Matt. So Matt,
Might have been.
I think that's really interesting. Fill us in a little more about, I really took a lot from that, like helping athletes understand their role. And Addie, I love that you said that your role isn't, and maybe it is being the best scorer or being the best defensive player, but there's so many other roles. Can you talk a little deeper about that, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. So that idea of roles, I mean, everybody in your team, on your program, like they need to have a role. If they don't understand the reason that they're there in the first place, number one, they're not going to have fun. And number two, they're just not going to have the comprehension of like, why are they actually there? Why are they showing up for practice? Especially for those people and athletes whose roles aren't to be, your top goal scorer, your top, points getter for our track and field athletes, right? If you're not the best athlete on the field, you may not entirely know your role. And if you don't know your role, there's going to be that confusion of why am I here? What's going on? And so with that, it's so important that, your athletes do know their roles, because that creates that buy-in, that creates that love of what they're doing. Yeah, maybe not everybody is going to be, the high scoring, role or the high point, the quickest time on the team role, but all the roles on the team matters. I think that this is something not just in mental performance, but something that I really took away from a lot of my athletic experience was the phrase that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And that is something that I think is very, very true. If you don't have everybody on your team bought into the same goal, utilizing their roles to beneficially attack that goal, your team is ultimately not going to be able to succeed to the level that it hopefully should if everybody would be buying in. And so for those athletes who maybe aren't, the top point scorer or the fastest runners, having the role of being the best teammate, of being the biggest cheerleader for your squad, of doing the little things right, of holding each other accountable. I think that that's a role that every single person and every single athlete on the team should have is holding each other accountable. Because when you as an athlete can hold, another athlete accountable and not make the coach do it, that just creates a more cohesive, better team. And so I think that the use of roles on a team is just so incredibly important for the team itself, but also for each individual. And I think it sets them up well for the rest of their life, right? Not every role that you have moving forward is going to be a role that maybe you always want, but you're always going to have a role, whether that is being, a mother, that's something you want, being a CEO, and that's something you want, or it may be working in a cubicle, 9 to 5, having to get your deadlines done. That may not be a role as fulfilling as being a mother, as being, the CEO, but that role still matters, and it's integral for that role, or for the success of the company that you're in. And so the use of roles, especially in athletics, is so important for the success of the team and for the individual, but also to teach athletes things for their future and their life, how to actually buy into something, how to succeed in the role that they're given, even if it's maybe not what they want in the long run. That allows them to grow and expand their role in the future. And so I think it's really important, and it's, something that is integral to sports and just to growing up in general.
Yeah, I agree. We are going to get wound down here in a minute, but Addie, I'm curious, now that we've kind of had a deeper conversation about values and roles, how do you handle comparison and or competition maybe it's for playing time, but maybe it's just for accolades within your team. How do you sift through some of that more challenging stuff, which I'm sure happens?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I have been very lucky, especially at Barrington. And Matt was a huge help this year as well with players like knowing their roles and not feeling like there's too much comparison. And obviously, I'm sure kids maybe have it in their head where they're doing, they're maybe comparing or trying to compete with each other. One thing that I do is I set firm boundaries. After tryouts, I talk a lot about like, congratulations, you've now made varsity, but that really doesn't matter. What matters is you have to fight to get playing time. Like, playing time is not guaranteed. It's about your work ethic and what you put out on the field, and what you bring, and like essentially what you're bringing to the team. It really helps too that we do a lot of team bonding stuff. We do a little sister, big sister program. We do a lot of team dinners. We do team yoga. We do all these events that I feel like have really brought the players close, where they're necessarily not competing with each other, but they're competing against the other teams, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been amazing. And I want to kind of summarize everything up. And maybe this is too deep of a question to kind of end it with, but what do you want every girl who plays for you to carry with them after they leave your program?
Confidence to be themselves.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to actually, I love that, to show up authentically as them.
Yeah, just every day live for yourself, not for other people. I think in today's society, and I think especially in women, we tend to be people pleasers. And that happens at a young age. And just being your authentic, raw self and doing things, that benefit you, and not worrying about other people all the time.
Yeah. Amen. That is a mic drop moment. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here. Addie, thank you for taking time out of your full schedule to be here. Thank you for allowing us to hear your dogs. I hope they weren't driving you crazy. I actually loved hearing them in the background. And I know that the people who listen to the pod will also get a kick out of that. They're probably out walking their dog right now. If you are listening and you have loved this episode as much as we hope you did, please make sure you are sharing with a female athlete or coach you love. It helps more than you can imagine. And the other thing that can really help, if you do a really simple thing on your favorite podcast platform, make sure you're giving us a follow and a 5-star review. Until next time.